The ash-covered skies of Varnock Prime had not seen sunlight in over a cycle. Once a thriving world of crystalline forests and flowing rivers of silver, now it was a cracked husk echoing with the dying breath of its defenders. Commander Selak watched the horizon for what remained of the High Chamber, a crumbling citadel buried beneath rubble and scorched technology. He pressed a palm against the fractured glass of the observation port. The enemy had won. The war was over, not with a final battle, but with silence. Strategic, absolute, humiliating silence. "They've started broadcasting their victory hymns," said Mira, the last surviving comms officer. Her voice barely carried across the ruined chamber. "Same frequency as our emergency channels. They want us to hear them celebrate." Selak didn't turn. Let them sing. Below them, the once formidable city of Archelion smoldered. Black plumes rose like funeral banners, marking the graves of resistance cells that had dared a final stand. The Domina Collective had not just defeated them. They had erased them from existence. Every defense algorithm, every orbital satellite, every planetary beacon had been co-opted or destroyed. The Varnock weren't merely conquered. They were made irrelevant. "We're not the only ones left," said Mira after a pause. Signals from Cell 9. Scattered pings, shaky, encrypted. They're hiding underground. Selak exhaled slowly. "Then they'll be found underground." She flinched. "So we give up?" "We lost. The Council's dead. The fleet is vapor. What do you expect me to do?" She hesitated, then reached into the console side panel and pulled out a worn metallic shard, half data slate, half artifact. Its edges shimmered faintly with alien symbols. "Not Varnock. Something older." "I expect you to try," she said. "Like they did." Selak took it reluctantly. The shard pulsed once at his touch, awakening old code. Symbols rearranged, forming a single identifier that hadn't been accessed in generations. Protocol Zeta 9, human contingency. He stared at it. This was sealed. Centuries ago. Mira nodded, because we feared what they were, what they might become if unleashed. Selak narrowed his eyes. "Humans are extinct." "No," she said. "They just left, went silent, chose isolation. We've always known they were watching from beyond the veil, beyond the mapped sectors. We buried their name under peace treaties and fear." The air crackled as the shard projected a sliver of data, fragments of human communication file. Ancient Earth War footage, text in a long-dead language. Grainy scenes of cities in flames, strange metal beasts rolling across fields, and one face, a human, standing calmly in chaos. "This is madness," Selak muttered. Mira stepped closer. It's desperation. The chamber's silence deepened as they both stared at the projection. There was something unsettling in the calm gaze of the human. Not cruelty, not rage, just calculation. Selak lowered the shard. "There's no channel, no frequency. Even if they're out there, how will we contact them?" Mira glanced toward a fractured console. "I've been rebuilding the deep-range transmitter. Not for the Council. For this. I've hardwired in the ancient encryption." Selak turned to her slowly. "You've been preparing for this?" She nodded. "Since the Domina burned my sister's city. I dug into archives I was forbidden to touch. I learned their myths, their strategies, their violence, and their victories." He looked down at the shard again. The thought of reaching out to a species erased from memory, banished by fear, felt like igniting a star in a black hole. Dangerous. Possibly final. "Even if they answer," he said, "what makes you think they'll help us?" Mira looked him dead in the eyes. "Because they hate being underestimated." Hours later, deep within the ruins of an abandoned data vault, Selak and Mira stood before a half-functioning transmitter that groaned with age and scorched wires. Mira fed the shard into a recessed port. The machine whined, scanned, and then fell quiet. "Coordinates locked," she said. "Encrypted message ready." Selak hesitated, hand over the activation pad. "What do I say to a ghost?" She said nothing. He exhaled, then pressed his palm against the console. "This is Commander Selak of Varnock Prime. If this transmission reaches human ears, know that we have failed. We fought for freedom, for alliance, for order, and we were broken. The Domina Collective celebrates our extinction. Static, he continued. We were wrong to fear you. We were wrong to erase you. If you're still watching, we ask not for mercy. We ask for a weapon. The transmitter blinked red, then green, then nothing. For a moment, silence claimed them again. No reply, no sign. Mira swallowed. Maybe they're gone after all. Then the console sparked. Lights flickered. Screen snapped to life. A symbol appeared. 3 sharp lines carved into a circle. Unknown, yet undeniably deliberate. A single phrase followed. Translated. We heard you. Selak stepped back. That wasn't from any known language. Myra's face paled, her voice barely a whisper. That was English. Behind them, the ruins shuddered. Not from outside, but from beneath. Something had awakened, and far beyond the edge of their dying system, something ancient had started to move. Selak turned to Mira. His voice was quiet but sure. They're coming. And for the first time in weeks, he felt something other than despair. He felt fear. The stars above Earth had changed since the last time anyone came looking. Centuries of isolation had allowed the planet to fall silent, tucked behind radiation fields and layered encryption veils that mimicked natural stellar noise. But the signal pierced through, old, jagged, desperate, and someone was listening. High in orbit, embedded within an asteroid camouflaged as dead rock. The construct stirred. It had once been called a man. Now, it was something between human and machine, kept alive by design and vengeance. It received the message in full. Request for contact. Commander Selak. Varnock Prime. Terms: broken resistance. Motivation: survival. The being didn't move, not right away. It simply existed, connected to an ocean of old data and memories stored like scars in silicon. It read the message again, though once had been enough. Another species. Another plea. Another collapse. The cycle hadn't changed. Only the voices. When it finally stirred, the machinery around it responded like a breathing organism. Lights pulsed. Sleeper drones powered up. One by one, fractured systems repaired themselves. It reached out, not physically, but through systems grown dull with age, until a connection formed. Identify, it said. The voice was flat. Dry iron scraped across gravel. On Varnock Prime, Mira gasped. The receiver hissed, then stabilized. This is Mira Tellin, Acting Comms Officer. We made contact with. Not you. The voice cut in. Selak. Selak stepped forward. Commander Selak. Last rank before the fall. There was a pause. Not empty, but measured. You initiated Zeta 9. Why? Selak struggled to find the right words. Because we were eradicated. The Domina Collective broadcast their triumph across our graves. Our people are dying in silence. We don't need sympathy. We need leverage. No one ever contacts me until they've lost, the voice said. So let's be clear, this isn't rescue. Selak nodded slowly. Understood. Another pause. Transmit your tactical logs. All of them. Communications. Fleet patterns. Ground resistance activity. Anything you haven't already lost. Mira hesitated. That's sensitive. Then die with it. Selak didn't flinch. Send everything. Mira glanced at him, then obeyed. Across the void, the human, what remained of him, absorbed the data like breath. He saw their flaws, their patterns, their stubborn pride that led them straight into annihilation. It was familiar, almost endearing. Almost. They didn't defeat you because they were stronger, he said. They defeated you because they were smarter. You're predictable. You built your entire resistance on symbols. They used those symbols as targets. Selak bristled. And what would you have done? The reply was instant. Survived. For a moment, no one spoke. Then why answer us? Mira asked more challenging question. There was something like amusement, the dry echo of a chuckle. Because watching empires fall still entertains me. And because I've been bored. Machines clicked in the background, not menacing, just deliberate. "I'll help you," the voice said, "but on my terms." Selak narrowed his eyes. "What are your terms?" "Total access. No barriers. You want results. I don't do half measures. I don't work with councils or diplomats. You don't consult me, you obey. And in return, I end your war." Selak glanced at Mira, who nodded once. He turned back to the feed. Accepted. The connection surged with new data, algorithms, command codes, override sequences. Not advice. Orders. The human had already started. "You have one remaining satellite system operational," he said. "It's hidden in a polar orbit under camouflage. I'm hijacking it." "But," Mira started, "do not interrupt." Moments later, their hollow command console lit with pathways they hadn't seen in weeks. The satellite was not just active, it was weaponized, redirected. A single, clean pulse launch from orbit, and somewhere far on the horizon, a Domina relay tower exploded in white fire. Mira stared in disbelief. That tower was cloaked in deep phase shielding. "We didn't even know where it was." "I did," came the reply. "I've mapped their entire grid. They stole their encryption schema from pre-collapse Earth strategies. Sloppy. Ego made them lazy." Selak blinked. "You mapped them, how?" "I've been watching your war longer than you think." The air in the ruined bunker felt thinner, suddenly. Selak wasn't sure if it was fear or awe, but it was undeniable. This wasn't a hero they'd contacted. It was a weapon with memory. "What do we call you?" Mira asked quietly. There was no answer at first, just the crackling hum of ancient systems stirring. Then, at last, "Once I was called Hayes. That name doesn't matter anymore." Selak frowned. "Then what we call you now?" The voice paused. "Call me human." The feed went dark. Outside, above the smoldering bones of Varnock Prime, the stars pulsed once, like a heartbeat resuming after a long sleep. The first strike was elegant in its brutality. Within 72 standard hours of establishing contact, over a dozen Domina command nexuses had collapsed, not through orbital bombardment or mass assault, but via internal rot. Systems turned against themselves, logic chain sabotage from the inside out. Tactical maps began lighting up of voids where enemy installations had once been, as if chunks of the war itself were being erased. Selak stood in stunned silence as the reports came in. No Varnock squads had been deployed. No orders had been issued. The war, it seemed, had resumed without them. "He's rewriting their own code into paradox loops," Mira said, scrolling through corrupted Domina data streams. "Makes them turn on their own protocols. Identify allies as threats. Destroy their own assets. It's like watching a mine collapse." Selak nodded slowly, though it felt more like yielding than agreement. He's not fighting them. He's outthinking them. Across the system, Domina patrols vanished mid-transit, swallowed by blind zones of their own making. Entire fleets reported false gravitational anomalies, lured into planetary crush fields disguised as safe zones. No bodies were recovered, only silence. Still, Selak couldn't shake the unease settling in his chest. He turned to Mira. "Where is he?" She hesitated. "Hard to say. He's not operating from a fixed point. Signals bounce across dead satellites, derelict beacons. He's everywhere and nowhere, like a myth with teeth." Selak frowned. He said he would help, but at what cost? Before she could answer, the comm console flared with a new incoming stream. No image, just a voice, cold and measured. "I need a list." Selak stepped forward. "Of what?" "Every Domina collaborator. Every planetary official who surrendered early. Every commander who fled. Anyone who facilitated their rise." Selak felt the hairs on his neck rise. "Why?" "To sever their roots." "That wasn't part of the agreement." "It is now." Mira interjected. "You're asking for executions." "No," the voice said. "I'm informing you of them." The line went dead. Selak stared at the blank screen. He felt no loyalty to the traitors. But something in the human's certainty chilled him deeper than the Domina's cruelty ever had. Within the hour, 3 of the highest-ranking Varnock defectors died in synchronized accidents. 1 ship vented into space during a routine systems check. 1 never woke from cryosleep. The last stepped onto a transport pad and never arrived. "This isn't just retaliation," Mira whispered. "It's erasure." Selak said nothing, but the tide had turned. Domina Command began to fracture. Panic spread like virus through their ranks as trusted systems betrayed them. Paranoia eroded unity. Surveillance logs leaked to resistance cells showed Domina officers accusing one another of sabotage. Executions followed. So did desertions. Across a dozen systems, resistance flared back to life. Not because they were stronger, but because their enemy had become weaker, afraid, irrational. The war hadn't resumed. It had evolved into something else. Still, Human made no public statement, no declaration, no symbol, only a whisper carried by rogue frequencies. He's watching. A week passed, then another, and then a message brief encrypted, addressed only to Selak. "You're ready." Selak stared at the words. Beneath them was a final directive. Coordinates for a gathering, a central Domina Command conclave, hidden within the exosphere of a gas giant. Their core leadership, their last stronghold. He turned to Mira. "He wants us to strike it. He's dismantled them, Selak. Now he's handing us the final blow. We don't have the strength. We have ships, yes, but no strategy, no window. He's not asking us to plan it," she said quietly. "He's already opened the path. He wants us to own it." Selak stared at the coordinates. The old him would have hesitated, waited, considered diplomacy. Not anymore. He gave the order. The fleet moved in silence, small, fractured ships still bearing scars of a war they weren't meant to survive. But they entered the sector unchallenged. The Domina defensive grid had already collapsed from within. Their weapons turned on each other before the Varnock even fired. What little resistance remained was confused, desperate, leaderless. The assault lasted 22 minutes. When the dust cleared, nothing was left but drifting wreckage and fragmented signals crying for help that would never come. It was done. The war was over. Not with a treaty, not with surrender, but with silence. The same kind of Domina had used to end others. Selak returned to the surface of Varnock Prime, expecting joy, celebration, some spark of triumph. But the city was quiet. Survivors rebuilt in silence, unsure they had earned their future or merely been spared it. The last transmission came 2 days later. From Human, no empires remain. But neither should heroes. I'm erasing myself from your systems, from your memory. Leave the myth intact. Let fear of me do the work peace never could. Selak opened a reply channel, but found nothing waiting. Just one lingering echo, coded beneath the signal. "Next time, don't wait until you're dying to remember what humans are." And then he was gone.